Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Shrinking Season 1, Episode 4, Potatoes. Has anyone ever eaten a raw potato before? This is a good question to ask just from the start of all of this.
Absolutely. Anyone out there who is a Jersey Shore fan knows that Snooki once, while drinking, ate a raw potato and was like, it's not bad. It's not bad. If you remember that. Yeah, no, I watched Jersey Shore. That's right.
I
Leave it for me in the comments if you also watch Jersey Shore.
I watched Jersey Shore. I do remember this. I also will say I have no interest in eating a raw potato. It does not seem like a good time. I love potatoes.
Oh, I love potatoes.
Give me any sort of potato variety possible.
That's right. We are part of the Potato Guild.
Yes, just don't eat them raw.
No. You're
Jimmy,
wasting a potato.
yeah, you could have taken that home, mashed it, boiled it, put it in a stew, fried it. Like there's so many potato pancakes,
Absolutely.
so many different possibilities. Like this episode, I think it pushes a lot of stuff forward when it comes to like why Paul is kind of as distant and detached as he is
Yep.
in a lot of ways. I think we get to a very important reckoning when it comes to Jimmy and his acting out and his over the top nonsense, especially when it comes to Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this through the whole thing. Like, I don't understand why he's not more thankful to Liz for everything that she did to really help his daughter out when nobody else was there. I'm so glad that they actually addressed this in this episode and didn't wait until the end of the series because it was seriously getting frustrating to
Yeah.
watch.
Now we'll get more into that, and I still have some hot takes about it and how they played a lot of that out. But
Mhm.
as we do get into all of this with Shrinking, join our Patreon. We've got a link in the description below. We just did a live chat over there on
Yep.
Tuesday night. We have another one coming up next Tuesday. It's a weekly thing. We're talking about Shrinking, a lot of other fun shows there. We
Mhm.
really appreciate everyone who has already joined in. We hope you guys take part in it moving forward. It
Yes.
is a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, let's just
Yeah.
talk about that fight with Liz and Jimmy, which was mostly just Jimmy telling off Liz for, blaming her for everything, basically, stepping in when she shouldn't have stepped in with Alice. He finds out that Liz's son, slept with Alice and that that's somehow Liz's fault as
Yeah.
well because she wasn't watching them and just told her off. And it made me so frustrated in this episode when that happened that I was like, this is the first time watching this show. Like, I've been like not team Jimmy through this so far
Yeah.
that I'm like, okay, he's grieving. He's not really dealing with it very well. I understand all that. But this was the first time that I was just like, I'm so out on him for treating Liz this way. If it wasn't for Liz, Alice could have really ended up in a spot that, nobody wants her to end up in. She could have had no adults.
It's true, and it's a complicated thing with this show where Jimmy is very unlikable at times, and he is very over the top at times. Like I know that shows and movies like to put Jason Segel in like these huge over the top ridiculous moments, him like shouting at Liz on the trampoline. There's a part of me that's like, okay, this is too much, but it's like, all right, this is sort of in the Jason Segel wheelhouse of
Yep.
what we're gonna do with him. If they had not kind of turned things around a little bit at the end of the episode and had him apologize, like I think this show would have probably lost some people in this episode.
I would have been one of those people. It's been really hard to watch Liz just be this punching bag for Jimmy for not taking responsibility for himself. And that is a very real situation that does happen, that
Yeah.
he's seeing Liz as the person he should have been and that he wasn't there, and he's taking his rage about himself out on her. But that apology needed to happen this episode, and she did accept that apology, and hopefully that's the end of that, because even seeing Gabby come over after overhearing that fight and was just like, Liz, like, you didn't deserve that. I know that you and I don't get along that well, but you didn't deserve that. And Liz just being like, I don't understand. Jimmy wasn't there. Her mother's passed away.
Yeah.
Gabby wasn't there. Nobody was there for this kid. So I stepped up and tried to do what I could to help her out. Why am I the bad guy? I'm like, yeah, why are you there? You're not.
It's she's just unfortunately on the other side of someone who is hurting and quite frankly
Mhm.
also jealous of the fact that Liz has this connection to Alice that he doesn't. And I don't think he knows, despite being a therapist and an expert at mental health, he doesn't know how to deal with it. And so he deals with it in some of the worst, most unhealthy ways. And, there's a part of me that's surprised that Liz, accepts the apology and moves forward as well as she does. But I'm guessing, and this is just sort of my own feeling and seeing how they've developed these characters, that Liz has known Jimmy for a long time. She knew him when him and Tia were together, and I think she knows in her heart that this is not really who Jimmy is. And I think she's just sort of waiting for him to get to the other side of this, feeling that a lot of this will ultimately turn around. And I think she is also lonely, and I think she's also struggling with sort of finding herself and the place in this world now that her kids have moved out. And so I think she's probably a little bit quicker to forgive and move forward than some other people would in different circumstances.
Yeah, I think she wants Jimmy to get better. Like,
Yeah.
yes, she's lonely. And yes, she was there for Alice when, her kids had gone and she's struggling to find her own place. But that is not the only reason that, or even the primary reason I feel that Liz stepped up. This kid had
Yeah.
nobody. Her father is drinking, drugs, women, like not there. I mean, one of the first scenes we saw was Liz having to come over at like 3 o'clock in the morning to be like, Jimmy, come on. Like, I need to sleep. Like, Alice needs to sleep. Everybody needs
Yeah.
to sleep. Like, please stop this. And I think because she's watched how badly it's affected Jimmy, she's taken a lot of the punches to be like, okay, if this is how he gets over this hurdle, I'll
Yeah.
be the punching bag so he can get to the other side of it. I will accept the apology. Let's move on.
A lot of this stuff, it's uncomfortable to watch characters deal with it, but this
Yeah.
this is what I really like about this show, is that even though I may get mad at people sometimes, and I was certainly mad at Jimmy for multiple episodes, it's you guys are willing to take on some stuff that other shows won't take on. Like, I think another good example of this is kind of this storyline that has started up with Sean and Alice, and we see at the end of this episode Alice sort of look at Sean and call him beautiful, and then we see Jimmy is awake and he hears all this. Like, this is all inherently really uncomfortable because Alice is young and Sean is an adult.
Yeah, that's my question on this. Like, how old is she supposed to be? Like, she's definitely in high school. I'm
Yeah.
assuming she's in her last year. So that makes her like 16/17. I'm gonna say 17
Yeah.
because that's the other thing. It's like her first person she was with was Connor right before he went to college.
Yeah.
So he was going to college at 18, 17, 18, 19. Like, we don't know how old he is, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, and Sean is a vet.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can join up at 18, but was he 18? Like, we don't really know all of that. How old is he? I
Yeah.
assumed he's like probably about 22 or 23 years old.
Yeah.
Like, it is very uncomfortable because I do not know what anybody's ages are, but I am pretty sure that Alice is not 18.
No, that's how I feel about it too. And I think this is something where Alice, because she's younger, she does not understand the complications of a lot of this. But we even see with Sean when like Alice's friend at one point tries to like hit on him. And
Yeah, he's just like, no.
nope. He just keeps on walking. It's
Yeah.
like he understands that this is uncomfortable and like wrong. And like if there is something that develops here, I mean, he's obviously, you see Jimmy concerned about it. And Sean, he may have actually been asleep. He may not have been aware of any of this,
Yeah.
but this is not comfortable subject matter. It's not something that shows like to really take on. But shrinking is a comedy, and it does play for laughs. So I think we can all assume that we're not going to some like really sort of dark place with this, but it's still something that they're willing to wade through in a way that other shows are not.
Okay, let's talk about Paul and Lily Rabe,
Yes.
who I absolutely love from American Horror Story. She is so incredible. I was so
Yeah.
excited when I saw her walk in as Paul's daughter. I was like, no way. I had no idea that she was going to be on this show.
I love the fact that she's not playing somebody in a horror
I
genre
know.
here. She's just playing like a normal person who
She's great.
does not have that much of a relationship with Paul, and we're sort of starting to peel back some of the layers here. Like, when I first watched this episode, like a lot of my big questions was Paul just one of these people who was more comfortable in helping other people than himself, that he didn't want to focus on trying to help himself. He used helping other people maybe as an excuse to not deal with some of this stuff. Like, is he more similar to Jimmy than he would probably want to admit just because he doesn't go the extreme measures that Jimmy goes? Does that mean that he's really that different? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Paul was having a discussion with Brian where he was like, listen, you have Parkinson's, and before it, gets worse, you need to get somebody to kind of be your power of attorney to be able to help you out. Oh, your daughter's coming into town. Perfect. Get her
Yeah.
to sign this sort of thing. And he's like, well, we don't have the greatest relationship sort of thing, me and her mom divorced and they moved to the East Coast and we just kind of lost touch. And even Brian's just like, what, they didn't have telephones, like
Yeah.
planes, you can go see her. That's sort of the most interesting part of it, is why did that end up happening like that? Like, was the divorce really messy? Was, the daughter kind of pushing him away? Was he pushing himself away? How was that really working? So that when we finally met Meg and she came in and they were kind of having this conversation, Paul even said, I would really like to spend some more time with you. He doesn't tell her about the Parkinson's. He's
No.
like, I would really like to spend some more time with you. Here's this picture of your grandson. He's growing up. Okay, cool. How about next month? Yeah, that seems okay, but we're really busy. And so she's pushing him off,
Mhm.
and he is trying to be like, I'd like to spend more time. And she's like, yes, but no. So I was just like, oh, that is really strange. Maybe it has been that she's pushing him away a bit because he was absent, not
Yeah.
around, whatever it was. But when he ends up having more of this conversation with Brian, it feels a lot like, not that he doesn't trust his daughter to step up, but she doesn't even really want to spend time with him now. So when he's much sicker, is she gonna step up? I think he just doesn't feel like she's 100% that she will.
I think this whole sequence and this whole storyline is two people very afraid of getting hurt,
Hmm.
because I think that, you know, his daughter, there's obviously been some stuff that has happened, and I think she doesn't want to get into a habit of seeing Paul regularly, because I think he'll pull away and then she'll have gotten her expectations up, her heart will be broken. And so I think she's trying to protect herself. And I think Paul is trying to, like, he doesn't want to be spending time with somebody and just have it be out of pity. I think he
Hmm.
wants like a real relationship that's based on something that's real. And I
Yeah.
don't think he doesn't want to hurt himself. He doesn't want that rejection. He doesn't want any of those sort of feelings. But in doing that, you are just cloistering yourself in more and more. And you've already been clearly doing this a lot already. I feel for Paul, but at the same time, I just want to be like, dude, you should know better than anyone that this is not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, I'm at this point that I'm like, okay, if it's not gonna be his daughter,
Yeah.
and it might be. I mean, I haven't seen the series, so I don't know where it's going. But if it's not gonna be his daughter who's going to be power of attorney, then who is it gonna be? Like, who do you guys think is gonna be? Don't spoil it if you already know, but like, who do you think it's gonna be? Because his relationship with Gabby is really growing, and there's
Yeah.
part of me that's kind of wondering if maybe it might be her. I mean, she was able to get him to stop driving. He showed up and was like, I've chosen to stop driving myself. She had kind of put it out there. He was like, yeah, you know what? I've thought about it. I've chosen this for myself. He shows up in her car. They're driving together every day. Their relationship is growing. Maybe Gabby.
Hey, he's willing to sing classic hits with her in the car. This is a very Harrison Ford singing is a very big step forward in their relationship. You never know where things like this are going to go. Now, I love the relationship between Gabby and Paul. We're building something there
Yeah.
that could be really, really interesting. But I hope at the same time, like, that it's something where he looks at this and is just like, I could have more of this with my own daughter.
Hmm.
Or he looks at the way he's able to have a back and forth with Alice and be like, you know what, I could use some of this in the relationship with my own daughter. It's just so much easier for him, I think, to build up these other things versus his actual daughter, because he doesn't have that same fear and he doesn't have that same history.
Because he's just like Jimmy, doing the exact same thing. No, I think a big part of it, though, is his daughter needs to be open to it. Like, he can try
Yeah.
everything under the sun to build up that relationship and break down the doors. But if she's just like, you were absent for too long. I'm sorry, you blew it. Like, so many decades have gone by, and I'm fine to have this kind of casual, like, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving. I have, 1 hour layover. My car's almost here. See you later. Good to catch up. And that's all she's willing to give him after all this time. She may not be open to doing anything else. And that's okay too. I mean, you have to be okay with what you're okay with. If the relationship was like this whole time and you don't trust it to be anything different, or you're not okay to let it be anything different, that's okay.
It's the really delicate dance, like, at the heart of this show is how do you can't make someone be okay with something that they're not. You
Yep.
you have to figure out a way to let them sort of get there in their own time. And
Or not get there
yeah,
if they don't want to get there. That's okay. I think that's something that is very rarely talked about on shows. That's always like, oh, you got to give them time and they'll get over it and they'll come back or whatever. But like, sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes that choice is okay.
here's one last thing I'll say here, just in a pure angle of silliness.
Mhm.
Did anyone else want to have a trampoline after watching this?
No, I'm all right. I'm not a person that likes any kind of exercise. So.
Okay, trampoline, it doesn't count. It's fun. It's doing all the work. You're just bouncing up and down. I have not
Yeah,
been
it
on.
looks tiring.
I haven't been on a trampoline in like 20 years. But you know what? I was watching that and I was just like, you know what, Jimmy? Maybe you have a good idea here. Sans the part where you're screaming at somebody while you're bouncing up and down. Maybe don't do that part of it.
Yeah, no.
Don't do anything that's going to distract you and make you feel like you're about to fall on your head on the other side of it.
Yeah.
All right, we have made it a good chunk into this season. It's going to be really fun to keep getting into the rest of it now that we've known just how messed up every single person is on this cast.
Absolutely. I think this was a really good episode to move some things forward that I felt were really stuck, like the Jimmy and Liz relationship. I was really worried they were going to wait until the finale and it was
Yeah.
all going to come out. I was like, oh man, it's going to drag on. It's going to be really tough to watch. But I think they moved things along at a really good pace with this, that we're sort of middle of the season and it's wrapped.
All right, well, we're going to go have some potatoes, but be sure to join our Patreon. We've got that link for you guys in the description below. We do that every Tuesday night, and thank you to those who are supporting us on Patreon.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it, and we'll see you here next time.